Life in a law school can be pretty hard, but what matters the most is what you do after law school. Today, we have with us somebody who cleared Jessup's round of India, who was actually the winning team of Jessup's India, who has been the head of the cultural committee and been a part of academic committee of her college. She went ahead for Cambridge University, pursuing her LLM degree, and after that, currently, she is pursuing a diploma course from Massachusetts. Today we have with us Nisha Raman. Nisha, welcome to an hour with 𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Nisha, we have a lot of questions lined up for you today, primarily because you have so many achievements, and we are really excited to have you on your show. So, first of all, tell us that why did you choose Cambridge out of all universities, or did the Cambridge choose you?
Well, I think it's always like a mutual thing with these universities where you have to choose the university and the university has to choose you. Well, otherwise you don't go there. But Cambridge was like a dream university of mine since I was in my third year of law school. And the main reason for that was because I love international law. Like, I love public international law. I've grown to love private international law. And Cambridge is known to be one of the best universities in the world for public international law. So even when I applied to a bunch of places, my focus was always on public international law. So my top options were NYU, Cambridge, because these two universities are particularly known for their quality in faculty and resources and opportunities in general. So yeah, that's why I chose Cambridge. And apart from the fact that it's also one of the best universities in the world, that was a big factor, obviously. And yeah, so that's why Cambridge.
All right. So before you went ahead and picked Cambridge up, and obviously Cambridge picked you up. How did you go about researching for the kind of universities that you were applying to? Did you have a list in place, or did you just randomly apply for every university which sort of offered in public international law and private international law courses?
No, so I didn't apply to every university. I did have a select few universities that I was applying to. Now, that's one thing where you realize that eventually you can't be applying to every single university because every application just takes a lot of time to work on because they all have their individual quirks. And so even though you might have like a rough template of how your statement of purpose is going to look constantly, there will be changes that have to be made. The application itself is always really long, so it's impossible to apply to every single university. And by general standards, I did apply to quite a few universities because I'm just a very cautious person who wants to and likes to keep backups. But I selected my universities purely based on the kind of faculty that they offered. So even though there were a couple of universities that I applied to, which I was very half-heartedly applying to, they were at the bottom of my rank list, though they're known to be some of the best universities in the world. For example, people are always surprised to hear that I applied to Oxford. I didn't get through, but I applied to Oxford, and that was, in fact, my last option. And that was particularly because they're not known for their public international law course. They're known for their public law, constitutional law, and jurisprudence courses. So I wasn't very inclined towards Oxford. Even if I had gotten the option to do it, I would have chosen NYU over Oxford any day, and even a smaller university called Graduate Institute at Geneva. So that's something that I always tell people when they're asking for advice on LLMs, that an LLM, because it is a specialized course, it's not an undergraduate degree where the name of the university matters so much. Of course, it does. It doesn't help if it's a big university with a big name, but you should focus also on the kind of people who are teaching you, because that's what will lead you to job opportunities or like recognition in the field that you want to go into. That will open up more doors for you if you choose a university based on the course with better faculty or better like centers to research under and stuff like that. So yeah.
Wow, that is quite a comprehensive idea. But I really want to know as to how did you go about researching for these universities? Because
So
I'm
like the
sure there are
actual
a lot
method
of,
of
a lot of
research.
people. Yes, yes.
Okay, so that had a lot to do with talking to seniors, talking to faculty in your university, even looking at a bunch of different rankings, etc. And if you're really passionate about one particular field, I think that through the years or in undergrad law school, you will end up learning or hearing the name of a university that's particularly good. For example, for intellectual property law, if someone was to ask me, like, I'm really interested in IP law, which university should I be going to? My first suggestion would probably, I mean, of course, like the bigger places like Oxford, Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, these feature on everyone's list because their names are so big that a master's from them obviously holds a value, irrespective of which field you're doing it in. But apart from that, a university like 𝗬𝗵𝗵𝗃, a university like UC Berkeley in the US, okay, they have particular value for their IP degrees because they're known for their faculty from that course. They're known for the kind of courses that they offer, the variety of courses. So I think a person through law school, it can't be like a one day I'm going to sit and research purely kind of a method. Through law school, you need to keep talking to people, gathering information about where they went, where your favorite professor in IP law went for an LL.M degree. That gives you a good indication because they will tell you about friends that they had. So a lot of my information actually came through that by talking to people. And yeah, apart from that, it wasn't a lot of like dedicated sit down, look at a bunch of different things, because ranking lists tell you, of course, give you a great idea of like where a university stands, but very few ranking lists indicate particular courses and which course is good in which university. Like I was giving the example of Oxford before. If someone wants public international law, Oxford will never be their first option, even amongst a bunch of universities, because they're not known for their public international law faculty or resources. You will go to Oxford because Oxford's a great university, but you wouldn't go for the public international law course per se, if that makes sense.
Also, as far as my knowledge, which is also very limited, is concerned, Oxford generally prefers to take in people with a certain experience, and a lot of people who like with a lot of experience, they preferably go to Oxford. And for people who are looking for specific specialization, in my opinion, universities which are, I think, faculty based or academic based. That is what I think probably. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's not completely wrong. So this is something that I've noticed, and I've always, like I've realized through the years that UK and US have two very different approaches to the kind of people that they take in. UK universities mostly, and I'm obviously not giving like this is a very general statement that I'm making, but UK universities are more academic in nature. They're very old school, where they prefer people who, are academically oriented. So they're willing to take on people even if they're right out of law school. So in fact, I know a lot of people from my seniors, juniors, batchmates who've gotten into Oxford right out of law school. So Oxford's in fact one of those few universities that I think is open to people right out of law school. But it is also one of those few universities that is very, very particular about your academics in your undergrad if you want to get into their masters. Unfortunately or fortunately, you have to be amongst the top 5%, 10% of your batch if you want to have a chance of getting into Oxford. And if you want to get in right after law school, you definitely should be in the top 5%. It's one of those traditional orthodox universities. Most UK universities are like that. On the other hand, US universities I have seen are more accepting to the approach of like, we look at the overall characteristics of the person in terms of extracurriculars, academics, etc. So even if you are a little lower on academics, you can still make it to a big Harvard, NYU kind of US university because you have like extracurriculars to back that up. So that's what I've noticed in terms of the kind of approaches that universities take.
That is great observation. And Nisha, surprisingly, like it's not even 10 minutes and we have questions flooding in for you. I will take the first question from 𝗷𝗵𝗃 and also mix it up a little with Khurana Garment's question. 𝗷𝗵𝗃 asks you, hello ma'am, what would be the best college to do LLM in corporate sector? And Khurana Government has an addition to that as to if you're looking at corporate law in India, what are the universities that one can look at? So we would want to know both from international and national perspective as to which are the best universities to pursue corporate law LLM from.
So I'll be very honest. I'm probably not the best person to be giving advice on LLM in corporate law, because in law school, that was one of my most cringeworthy subjects. I was not inclined towards the corporate law, commercial law area at all, which is quite ironic given the career path that I'm now choosing to pursue. But I'll give you very general advice where I'll say that Harvard, from what I know, is one of the best universities in the world for corporate law. So I would take a starting point from there. You have other, like US universities in general, focus a bit more on the hardcore corporate law based subjects. If you're looking for something closer to home within India, I know that NLS Bangalore offers some good like LLM courses which are recognized pretty well. You have any of the NLUs, in fact, for that matter, have great LLMs if you're looking for particularly sticking to India, and if you're coming from that perspective. So I would look at trying to get into one of the national law schools. If you're looking for something around the South Asian region, Chinese universities of late, from what I hear, have been doing decent corporate law courses. They're relatively easier to get into as well if grades and curriculars are a little bit of a concern, because you were having fun during the first few years and you didn't build up as much, but now you're focused and want to get into corporate law. So I would definitely look at some of the universities in the South Asian region. Again, like I said, because of my complete it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say my hatred towards corporate law during my law school time. I didn't research as much. I'm now tending away and sort of liking commercial law, but yeah, at that point I was not a big fan, so I didn't research much on corporate law subjects.
You spoke a lot about how maintaining a good score is a prerequisite to enter the university, specifically in UK, wherein US universities look at an overall characteristic or persona or accomplishments of. Bhavesh has personally texted me on WhatsApp and he has asked me that if the LLB aggregate score is between 55 to 60%, are there universities which still consider the application and or do the score that is 60% and above?
No, of course. Like, my intention was not to say that people with a not very high score from undergrad can't get into a UK university at all. It's I think a general rule for all universities, whichever jurisdiction we're talking, UK, US, Singapore, etc., that every country invariably has the tier 1 universities, the tier 2 universities, the tier 3 universities, and depending upon your grade, your chances of getting into a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 university increases or decreases. So, of course, with you can still get into great universities across the world with a academic score which is not very high. If you supplement it and if you have something to show that, like I was doing this in extracurriculars like sports, or, I was mooting, or I was publishing these papers, or I was doing these kind of internships, and therefore it compensates for my score. So there is always a compensation mechanism, and there are still great universities that will take you in if you have like an exceptional statement of purpose, to show that, well, in my undergrad, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and that's why my scores haven't been very great. But now they're all very variable factors. There is never one set rule. But yes, to answer Bhavesh's question, you can still get into a good law school and pretty much anywhere in the world with a score from what I think was 55, 60. You can still, but you just need to pump up yourself in other factors a bit more, and you'll be fine.
All right, perfect. I think, Nisha, you just did not answer 𝗵𝗿𝗍𝗍's question, but you also answered Vedang's question. Vedang, even if you're from GLC, and I mean, I don't really know, but if GLC is known to create a ruckus every year, and you probably do not have great score in academics, try to compensate with your CV, and I think you'll be good to go. All right, I will be moving on to the next set of questions, and that is how, because you've said that the universities necessarily do not take academic score into consideration, how did you go about preparing for getting into a good university during your law course? What were your achievements? What were your accomplishments? How were you building your CV?
Um, so I've had this question a lot from, like, even when I was in law school and I had juniors coming in, etc. I had a lot of people when I was in my senior years ask me, what did you do from your first year to build up your CV? And to be honest, I didn't ever do one particular thing with the intention that this is going to look great on my CV. So even if I absolutely don't enjoy it, I'm going to do it. Okay, that is all. Sometimes, obviously, you might not enjoy it a lot, but you'll still do it because, let's just try it, kind of an attitude. So that might be there. But I honestly didn't do a single thing in law school that I didn't enjoy. I tried everything. For example, I tried mooting. I loved it. I went on with mooting. I got into the debate society of my university in my first year, but I didn't enjoy it at all. So I didn't do a single debate. I didn't do a single inter-school debate for the whole year, and ended up getting banned from the society for a period of 2 years because of that. But I was
that is.
I mean,
I'm a keen debater, so for me, like, this is a little heartbreaking. But
I didn't enjoy debating. Like, I didn't enjoy the aspect of debating where you have to prepare something with just 20 minutes of time, and I don't like the extempo nature of debating, which is why I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed the preparation part of a moot, which is why I enjoyed mooting when compared to debating. And I like speaking, so I was a speaker even in moot, but I didn't get that thrill out of debating. So yeah, I never did debating, though a lot of people thought I should have. I have published only one paper, and that was in my second year of law school. It wasn't a very good paper, very admittedly. It's now, when I look at it now, I sometimes want to cringe and like bury it in like a lonely desert. That's how bad I think it is. And I didn't go on to write anything else. I don't have a single other.
We are extremely apologetic for the technological error that has occurred. Nisha, I'm so sorry, it's breaking a little. Could you check?
Is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't do a single paper publication because I didn't enjoy writing papers. I enjoyed taking part in cultural activities in terms of managing them. So even though I was never part of any cultural society like dance, singing, etc., because I don't have a showcaseable talent in any one of those, I enjoyed managing fests. I enjoyed organization. So I joined the organizing committee of the cultural team. So my advice would just be that do something that you like, but when you're doing it, do it to the best of your ability. There is no point in doing a half-hearted effort in anything, because I had a lot of people telling me that, oh my God, you don't have a paper publication. You still have time in the next, because in my fourth year, when I was finally like getting around to actually concretely talking to people about the LLM, etc., a lot of people, the first question that professors or students used to ask me was, how many paper publications do you have? And I had only one, and an insignificant one at that. So a lot of people discouraged, said, oh my God, you should try and do a paper publication in the next 3-4 months. But I wasn't ready to do something just for the sake of doing it. So I continued to moot, and I continued to organize fests, etc., and hope that that would get me through. Yes, with some universities, it might have affected my application, but I think that I did well in mooting, and some other extracurricular. So I thought I was covered, and that would just be my advice.
Clearly, you did clear 𝗬𝗓𝗃, and you were the winner for the Indian round. So I think you clearly did a fabulous job there. I have a question from Utkarsh Nigam, who asked that what are the benefits of doing an LLM from a foreign university or university from India? And would you say that LLM from a foreign university gives a better job opportunity than doing it from India?
That's a good question, because there is a huge divide in the stances of everyone I know, as to whether an LLM is absolutely necessary out of law school or an LLM is absolutely not necessary. And neither approaches are right or wrong. Again, it really depends on what you want from life, where you're looking your career to take you. Because, for example, if you're looking to go into a corporate career or litigation for that matter, right? A lot of people will tell you, and rightly so, that law firms don't really give that much of an importance to whether you've done an LLM or not. You know, they, of course, like, it will give you a slight added advantage that you know better. It might give you a slight initial boost, but in the larger aspect, specifically for people who are looking to go into litigation, you won't really need it to get clients. You won't really need it if you're going to go to the chambers of a lawyer. So an LLM might not be completely necessary in that perspective. On the other hand, the main reason that I initially wanted to do an LLM is because I wanted to get into international law. And international law is the kind of field where right out of an undergrad law degree, no one is looking to give you a job opportunity. They do care about the fact that you have an international law specialization because it's such a niche area that is not taught extensively in law school. So they want to see some more learning, some more progression, and some more interest of the person in the field to be able to give them a job in that area. So like I said, you need to see what you want to go into. Again, if you want to become an academic, and if you know you want to go into research, you want to go into a think tank, or you want to get into a university as an RA or as a TA, getting a master's degree is pretty much the biggest thing that can happen to your initial boost, because you've gotten a master's and it means you're good at research, which means you're good at like the specialization. Your job opportunities just generally increase. So I think it makes you different from every other candidate that's applying for a job. So I think in that way a master's helps. Yeah, that's my perspective of it. So there is actually no clear-cut answer. I know this sounds really vague, but it really is specific to what you want to do in your career. Don't let people tell you that it's absolutely necessary or it is absolutely unnecessary. There is no one right answer. If you want to study more, take an LLM. If you don't. So it's really a coin toss.
I think that answers questions to a lot of you out there who are asking us whether LLM is required to get into a law firm, or whether an LLM is required to get a better job. I think it's on you. If you want to go ahead and study more, do it, like Nisha clearly said. And otherwise, you're good to go. Also, there is Harshit, who wants to know the list of universities, if you can, who offer masters in intellectual property, and whether there are job opportunities available abroad for Indian students who do not possess any experience.
Okay, so that's a twofold question, both of which have like distinctish answers. So I'll tell you this. Let me answer the first part of the question, which is relating to all we've been talking about. For IP, yeah. So for IP, Queen Mary, like I've already mentioned, has a great course on IP. It's known to be a good IP area. You have UC Berkeley, which is known to have a great course. Let me just think of some other universities which my friends applied to. So LSE, King's, UCL, all of these are known to have decent courses on IP law. You also have in the US, you have NYU, which has a decent course on IP law. You have UC Davis, which has a good course on IP law. From what I hear, Cornell also doesn't have it also has a very decent course on IP law. So there are a bunch of universities like that who have good courses on IP law. So I think that should give you a good starting point for places to research for IP law.
Okay.
And
I think we'll take the second part of question when we're discussing jobs and we're discussing your internships. We'll take the second part of the question then, because we have a lot of questions regarding that, and we need to proceed with the set of questions that we have for you as well. So please tell us that how, I mean, I'm sure you applied to a couple of universities that interested you. How was your approach for drafting a standard format that you were following, or did you made each SOP unique? How did you go about it?
So this is the thing about statement of purposes. I made the mistake, so I'm not telling you in terms of my first SOP draft was perfect. My first SOP statement of purpose draft was absolutely nonsense. It got completely thrashed by my professors in terms of, like, there were red lines all around where they told me that this is not a good SOP. And the main reason that it was not a good SOP is because I was following a template which I had found off of other people's SOPs or of the internet. And I was following a template. One of the best pieces of advice I got from one of my professors was that the SOP is not for you to list out your qualifications that they will anyway see on your CV. Okay. Neither is it for the university to hear a bunch of fancy words about your hard work and your diligence and like your dedication, etc. Because they're going to read the exact same words on every single other SOP that is being received by them. So biggest advice that I got and that I can give forward is that your SOP has to be a reflection of you as a person, and it should make the reader leave by so at the end of the SOP they should be like, okay, I can sort of picture the kind of person this individual is, or give them one particular quality, incident in your life, incident in your law school, one particular achievement that will stick in their head, and they will say that, you know what, I want this person in this batch of my university because they have done this, or that they're this kind of a person, or because of this kind of goal that they have. So you need to make your SOP extremely specific. Now, what I did to my SOP was that I had a larger three-part to my SOP, where the first part was talking about why I'm doing law in general, where I gave specific instances in India or issues in India that had gotten me thinking about why I wanted to pursue international law. Then I went on to talk about what I had done in law school that showed my interest towards international law. So I spoke about only two instances. One, I spoke about a course that I had done in law school that I thought was extremely interesting and unique, which was related to international law, which I didn't think a lot of other people would have on their SOP. So I mentioned that and what I learned and took away from that course. And I talked about my experience at 𝗬𝗓𝗃, because 𝗬𝗓𝗃 is just known for it's an international law moot court competition that's known across the world. So I spoke about one particular issue that I was helping resolve in 𝗬𝗓𝗃 that gave me like a takeaway point. But more importantly, I gave like a central theme to my SOP, where I was completely talking about my interests and dedication towards international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and how both of them interact and the problems. So I gave specific examples of things that I had read during my course, which I was mentioning, and things that I had learned during the moot that I was doing 𝗬𝗓𝗃, which had flickered or given me the interest in that particular area. So I picked up and I just like joined, I created a comment thread where they saw that where am I coming from, what have I done in law school related to that. And then I spoke about why that particular university by talking about every university. I chose one particular professor who I was extremely interested in studying, under whose course I wanted to do. And I said, well, you have this particular professor, and this particular professor teaches in no other university in the world, and they teach this course, which is in the area of law that I'm interested in, which is why I want to come to your university and not any other university. And that I think is very important, because you're not telling them just why you want to do an LLM, because you can do an LLM from 2000 universities across the world. You are telling them why you want to do an LLM in that particular area in their university. So give them a reason that they have that no one else has, was my perspective. So I chose either a professor, and with Cambridge particularly, I also spoke about the one of the research centers that they have. It's called the 𝗬𝗍𝗽 Center for International Law, which is known for its amazing work in international law, because they work with the Red Cross mission, etc. in research. So I said, the opportunities that you can provide me with is not something that I can get from, even a NYU or an Oxford, etc. Not in as many words, but you need to tell them that I don't get it from anyone else. So yeah, that was the approach to my drafting of the CV. Sorry, the SOP.
All right. We have a question from Abdul Hanan from you, and I have a similar question. So Abdul asked that university that you've mentioned, like Harvard, are really money consuming. And so just in case if, if they want to pursue an LLM, is there options available like scholarship or students loan? Now, I know for a fact that you have received a UK Foundation of International Law Fellowship, which helped you a lot. So how did you go about, I mean, what are the scholarships that are available for Indian students to avail, and how to go about it?
Okay, so scholarships is obviously a big concern. It's one of the biggest deciding factors for any law student while they're applying for a master's, because like Abdul rightly said, it is extremely expensive to do an LLM. So the harsh truth is that US is at least twice as expensive to do an LLM in when compared to UK or anywhere else in Europe or South Asia, which was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't go to NYU and I chose Cambridge over it, apart from the fact that Cambridge was my first option. NYU, the biggest reason for me to not go was that I didn't get a scholarship with them. And without the scholarship, like my LLM, including living expenses through the year, was easily going to amount to at least 80 lakhs, which is a huge amount of money. And in fact, if I hadn't gotten into Cambridge, I would have chosen, possibly, I was considering choosing another university called Graduate Institute in Geneva over NYU, merely because it was more cost effective and it didn't make sense to spend so much on an LLM. So yes, you're right. Scholarships are a big factor. UK is much cheaper. Europe is much cheaper than the US. So if cost is a concern, I would deter away from the US. Also because US is known to have lesser scholarships based on financial need. It's known to have lesser scholarships in general, like especially the bigger universities, Harvard, NYU, Yale, UC Berkeley, etc., don't have too many scholarships. Specifically, full scholarships are very, very few. Like you can literally count them on one hand. And they have a lot of partial scholarships, but that might not be enough for a lot of people, in which case definitely stick to UK, EU universities, Europe universities. They make more sense. For the scholarships that do exist, every university has scholarships that are specifically dedicated to their university. So you will have to do individual research on scholarships at that university. It is usually very simple because you go onto the university's website and there is a section either called finances or bursaries or scholarships or financial support. One of these terms are usually there on their website, and it gives you the link to the different kind of scholarships that you can avail. So that's your easiest go. There are conditions to every scholarship. So like you said, there are some scholarships that Indian students just can't avail of because you're an Indian student, and they might be targeted just for, say, Brazilian students or students from Hong Kong. At the same time, there are scholarships across the world that are targeted to Indian students, but they're again university specific, so that's individual research. Apart from that, in India, there are a couple of scholarships slash non-interest loans of sorts that are given out to students, or partial scholarships. So I would definitely look at the Tata Fund for scholarships. And then there is the Inlangs or InLink scholarship, if I'm not wrong, which is also there, which is also like a interest-free loan that you get for a certain amount for a period of 5 to 10 years or something around that sort. So you do InLinks, sorry, it's one of them. So you definitely have like Tata InLinks, etc., which are there for Indian students specifically, and they don't apply to specific universities. They're just generally for any university that you might want to apply to across the world, as long as you pass their own criteria. For Cambridge in particular, if there's anyone interested in applying, you have scholarships that are given by the HRD ministry, the Commonwealth scholarships, and then you also have the Cambridge Trust scholarships, which are there specifically for Cambridge, and then you have the Gates Cambridge scholarship also, which is available. So there are a whole bunch. Scholarship is not a big concern for UK. UK has quite a few good options.
All right, perfect. We have a lot of questions where people want to know about whether an LLM will help them. I mean, I'm coming back to the same thing because that's what's being asked continuously. Whether an LLM would help to make a career in good corporate law firms. This is by Utkarsh. We have a question by about Australian universities for LLM in corporate law. And yeah, so very quickly, this is the last time we'll be discussing about corporate law LLM because clearly Nisha has a huge inclination towards international law and IP laws. So Nisha, do you have any idea about LLM from Australia?
Australia specific, unfortunately, it's not. See, I'll give you like general information in general that corporate law firms don't really care about, without sounding crass, they don't really care about LLMs, to be honest, because I mean, if you've done it, great, but if you've not done it, it's not a big disadvantage for you, to be very honest. I know most of my friends from my batch who went into corporate law firms didn't have an LLM. They didn't want to get an LLM immediately after law school. So they've got jobs at Amarchand, J. Sagar, Trilegal, AZB, you know, the big firms without having an LLM. So it was not a criteria for them. And definitely most people who get into corporate law or litigation do think that taking 1 year off right after law school to do an LLM is not necessary because it just takes away from the amount of professional experience that you could have otherwise got, which would be better and more useful if you're going to remain in a corporate law setup. For foreign law firms, though I can't speak for Australia in specific, so when I got my training contract at 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃, they didn't really care about my LLM. So I got my training contract after I got the Cambridge acceptance and I accepted it. But at the same time, like when I was talking to the graduate team, trying to figure out whether I should still pursue an LLM or whether I should just go towards my job at 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃, they said, well, they left it up to me really. They said, it's your decision. If you want to do an LLM, you can do it. If you don't, we don't really want one. So most of the partners had the same opinion when I spoke to them, that they said it's a good thing if you have an LLM if you want it, but it's not a demand of the law firm. It wouldn't affect it. So I don't really think that law firms stress heavily on LLMs because it doesn't give them anything.
All right, Nisha, with this, we are going to conclude the first part of this interview where we were speaking about the LLM. Now we'll be quickly moving towards the second brought 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃 up. Let's talk about foreign internships. For everybody who's watching us right now, Nisha, congratulations for getting a training contract with 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃. Nisha has got a training contract with 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃, that is that she'll be working with them after the internship. So tell us about, first of all, how did you get an internship at 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃?
So my first internship at 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃 was because of an MOU that the undergrad university that I'm from, Jindal Global Law School, they have an MOU with the Abu Dhabi Office of 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃, where every summer there are 2 students who get selected to go for a 1-month internship in the month of June, July. So that's something that we've had, I think, pretty much from the first or second year of the creation of our university. So it's a long-standing thing that we've had with them, and I know that students go for it till date. So that's how my first brush with 𝗰𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃 began. out of my first internship with 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧, I got a call back for a second month internship during the winter with 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧's Abu Dhabi office again. And this was purely like on the basis that, do you want to come? It was fun working with you. Would you be interested, kind of a thing. They weren't promising a job, because here's the thing about law firms across the world. If you want to get into them for a training contract, for a job offer, like a permanent job, not just an internship, you need the job offer to come either out of a UK branch of theirs, that is their London office, or it has to come out of one of their American offices. And the biggest reason for that is that the only way you can work at these law firms as an Indian is by being an English qualified lawyer or an American qualified lawyer. That is how you also will get deployed to, any other office in Abu Dhabi or Tokyo or, Singapore, etc. Even if you go and do an internship at a Singapore office, which I know a lot of people have, the Singapore office is not able to take you in because you can't qualify under Singapore law unless you do the complete 3-year undergrad law degree. So just like how an American or a UK citizen can't come to India and practice in Indian law without having gone to law school in India, we can't go there and do that. So you have to go to London or America, etc., and qualify at the bar there. And I'm mentioning these particular 2 jurisdictions because in America, in New York and California, by merely doing an LLM degree, you are eligible to sit for the bar exam, which means that you become eligible to qualify for a job in one of the law firms in either of these 2 cities. And therefore, it's an easy route in. And then once you qualify as an American lawyer, you can be placed anywhere in the world as an American lawyer practicing in Singapore or Paris or wherever you want. London is the same thing, except under English law, you can't just do anything. You have to either, there are 2 ways to get in. One, you need to do a course called the Graduate Diploma in Law, which is the course that I'm doing right now. Or you need to do an exam called the 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧 exam, which happens, you can write the first exam in India as well. So you can apply for it, write it, and it's basically to qualify for the bar. And then you do a training contract, which is for 2 years, after which you become a fully qualified lawyer in the UK, resulting from which you can fully practice in an English law firm or a American law firm, etc. So,
right. So I'll be questioning you from a very novice perspective. I assume that now that you have a training contract, so you'll be working with them.
yeah.
Did you appear for 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧 as well?
So the thing is, you either do the 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧, and I have had friends who are doing the 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧, but I have my law firm, so 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧 told me that I can't just give an exam and enter and qualify. They wanted me to do a 2-year full study. So I'm actually going to be doing 2 courses. The course I'm currently doing is called the GDL, which is the Graduate Diploma in Law, which is a substitute for doing the exam. And the second course, which I'll be pursuing next year, is called the Legal Professionals course, which is specifically to qualify as a solicitor. Because UK works under a weird system where, a different system, where unlike India, once you qualify as a lawyer, you can't just go to court or choose to go in a law firm. You need to decide after law school whether you want to work in a law firm and just be preparing documents and do the documentation part of it, or you want to be arguing before court, in which case you become a barrister. So if I wanted to become a barrister next year, I would have to do a course called the BPTC, which is the Bar Professionals Training Course. But because I want to become a solicitor and do the documentation, writing, drafting part of it and work in a law firm, I'm doing the LPC, which is to become a solicitor. So yeah, that's and you can skip both of this and just do the 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧 exam and qualify as a solicitor as well. But my law firm was not okay with it, which is why I'm not doing that.
So so let me get this straight. So right now you're doing 1 course, Manchester, and after this you'll be pursuing another course. So that makes it 2 courses, and then you'll be pursuing your training contract.
Yeah, which is for 2 years. Yeah.
This for 2 years. This is like 4 years at a stretch to practicing in UK.
Yeah, but
that is a long time.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of time. The good part is that they fund your GDL. Like if the firm is asking you to do a course like the GDL or the LPC or the QLTS, they will also fund it for you. So I'm hardly paying anything out of my own personal parents' money at this point. So it's mostly funded from they pay your complete tuition fee. They also give you a certain amount of like a maintenance, etc. So 𝗬𝗿𝗍 is one of the few firms that asks you to do the GDL and the LPC completely. I know 𝗕𝗿𝗏 is a firm that is okay with you doing the QLTS exam and taking the training contract out of that, getting the training contract out of that. So it really depends from firm to firm.
All right. Nisha, you got your first internship through Jindal Global Law School. That is the MOU that they have with 𝗬𝗏𝗍. Pretty sure that there are a lot of, I mean, more apart from Jindal, everybody do not have such an access to an MOU like that. For people like those, for people like me, how do we go ahead and get an internship lined up with a company as usual, or something similar abroad?
Yeah, I mean, of course, while the Abu Dhabi internship with 𝗬𝗏𝗍 did really help me because I ended up getting a partner reference out of it, that was not the reason why I got the training contract. My training contract came out of an internship that I did in the London office, which Jindal had nothing to do with. It was an independent application which I made. So how it works for the bigger firms in the UK is that they have a internship, which they don't call an internship, they call it a vacation scheme. Because in the UK, at least as a law student, you never just do an internship for experience's sake. You do an internship with the prospect mostly of getting a job out of it. So a vacation scheme is your way in to get a job, because at the end of every vacation scheme, you are interviewed for a training contract. So the way to get in, even for an Indian student, or for your UK student, or from anyone across, or for anyone across the world, is to get a vacation scheme. Now, the vacation scheme applications for all the bigger law firms are open within the period of September to January, and you have 3 periods when you can do the internship: winter, Easter, or summer. So that's in the months of either December, Jan, April, or June, July. So these are the few months, and you have to specifically apply for like a particular period's internship as well. So it's all very focused, and you need to know most of the applications close for winter vacation schemes in November beginning, and for the winter Easter ones, I think they go on till December end or Jan end, depending on which law firm you're applying to. And all information is always available on the websites of the law firms that you want to apply to. Now, the reason why I've been saying bigger law firms is not because smaller law firms can't be applied to, but given the current climate of Brexit, of generally how like people from other countries coming in for jobs are being looked at across the world, your biggest chance of getting a visa is with the bigger law firms, because they are the ones who can afford to pay the government the amount of fee, etc., that is required to be granting a visa or sponsoring a visa. So the smaller law firms don't usually have the capacity to take on foreign students, because they have enough in their own local markets to satisfy and fill up their vacancies. So you should be looking at the bigger law firms if you want a definite chance of getting into getting a training contract offer. That's unfortunately how it is right now. Yeah, so a vacation scheme is definitely your way in. A vacation scheme is usually a 1, 2, or 3 week to 4 week internship, which we call an internship, where you'll be working with 1 department or 2 departments depending on the kind of firm that you're in. So I was in 𝗬𝗏𝗍. Actually, I'm sort of running ahead of myself, where just getting the vacation scheme is about 80% the way for you to get a job, because most of the law firms take most of their hirees out of vacation schemes, especially if you're an international student. A vacation scheme is pretty much your 95% bet on getting a job offer, because they don't usually take on international students without having them intern with them first. So to get the vacation scheme for 𝗬𝗿𝗍, I had to go through 3 different processes. So the first was just the application, where you answer a bunch of questions, you have information that you submit yourself like any usual application. And then I went on to the second stage, shortlisted, go on to the second stage, which is a video. All
we are very sorry to I'm so sorry, we lost you a little in between. Let's talk about the second step again.
Sorry, yeah. So the second step is basically that I had a video interview where I had to record my answers to 3 questions that came up on screen one at a time, and I had to submit them on a link. They were questions. 2 of the questions were competence questions, where it was, why do you want to do law? Why do you think you're adaptable? And then I had one sort of technical question where I had to talk about a current legal issue that I thought was pertinent in the world, and what was or how would the firm be affected by it. So I sort of had a general idea that these were the kinds of questions because I had spoken to some people who had given interviews in the past. I'd taken a look at a bunch of sample questions that you can find on the internet on competence questions for interviews, etc. And I'd prepared a rough sketch of, if this comes regarding strength and weaknesses, this is what I want to largely say. And you have to mold your answer, so it's about presence of mind as well. But that was my second step. And the third and final step was where I had a telephonic interview with the graduate recruitment team of 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗍, where it was again a bunch of competence questions on like why I want to do it, why particularly as an Indian student do I want to come to a foreign law firm to practice, which is usually one of the biggest questions. So I think it's a lot of that where you have to prepare for interview, but you also have other law firms. For example, I know for a matter of fact that Herbert Smith, Allen & Overy, and I think possibly 𝗘𝗿𝗿𝗃 as well, they have a slightly different process where you also have to do like a logical reasoning test, a legal reasoning test, etc. 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗍 didn't have that to get the vacation scheme, but I know these firms do. So I would definitely be wary of that as well. Yeah, then you get the vacation scheme, and on the vacation scheme, I had a completely different set of assessment processes. So 1, I was assessed on the kind of work I was doing, obviously, at the internship. 2, we had to prepare a legal memo and submit it to them. We were given a deadline of 3 days. They gave us a case. We had to prepare a legal memo on that and submit that. And then we had a third task, which was quite fun because we had to run our own business in like a controlled environment, or we had to run a pizza business of our own, and that was aimed at trying to figure out the kind of people we are, how we interact in a team, etc. So that was a fun exercise. And then the final thing is the final interview that you actually have for your job, which happens with partners at the law firm. So it's a multi-layered process, and but it's fun.
All right. I think that answered a lot of questions for Avi, Priya, and Rebecca. Shruti has to ask that, Nancy has to ask that, is foreign internships worth just for the sake of experience, or can one go for it even after one is currently working and already graduated?
I mean, if it's just for the sake of experience, like I said, my approach is always, I mean, it's difficult to say because to be honest, when I first took up the 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗍 internship, even when I applied for it, the MOU, that internship that I had through Jindal, when I applied for it not very seriously, to be honest, because like I said, in law school, I didn't want to get into commercial law. I didn't want to get into corporate law. I wanted to get into 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗍 because I thought it would be a fun experience. At the same time, I really loved my experience the first time around with 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗍, which is why I did the second and third. And my approaches to internships in general, India or 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗍, has always been that I'm going to try out everything. So if you look at my internship range, it actually makes no sense at all, because just looking at my internships, you can never figure out what I actually want to do in as a career path, because I have one internship at with the Assistant Solicitor General in Karnataka, Bangalore, which is where I'm from, which is my first year. I have an NGO internship. I interned with 𝗵𝗿𝗶𝗃, which is a legal documentation site in their Chennai office. I interned at General Electric with their legal counsel. I've done a Dua Associates internship in Bangalore, and then I just did 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗃. So my internships are literally all over the place, and that was just because I was trying to use internships as an opportunity to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. And as you can clearly see, I didn't like a lot of things before I ended up at 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗃 and ended up doing 2 internships back to back with them, which is the only thing that I liked of most of my internships. And again, if you want to get into corporate law, and if you're very sure that corporate law is the area for you, I think, and if you know for a fact that you want to do Indian corporate law and you don't want to be working in an international law firm, just for the sake of experience, I wouldn't really encourage it again. Because if you're very sure, then you should rather be interning multiple times with an 𝗵𝗿𝗍𝗃 or an AZB or a tri-legal, trying to work with the kind of people that you want to eventually land up with, and get a pre-placement offer from them, or like get an interview from them. So you really need to mold your career according to your wishes, and don't fall into the trap of people telling you that, oh, you should do this internship. Because I had 10,000 people telling me that you should look at an 𝗵𝗿𝗍𝗃 or an AZB or a tri-legal or a JSagar or a Luthra, and I don't have a single one of those internships because I just always knew I didn't want to do it. So really just do what you want to do and enjoy it, and you'll be fine. You'll really turn out okay.
All right, great. So I don't know how the time just flew by. We just have 4 minutes left to go off here again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you that we want very quick answers to. More like a rapid fire. We have never done this before, but I'm so short of time and have so many questions. The first question is, what to expect in a foreign internship?
It's exactly like an Indian internship, except with a much more relaxed environment. Especially with 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗃, I absolutely loved it for the biggest reason that it's not like an Indian law firm setup where you're expected to work till 12, 1 or 2 in the night, even if you don't have work, just because you're making a point to stay in that law firm and show your face. There were days when I stayed obviously till 2 o'clock because there was a deal that was happening, and that there were days when after the deal I was kicked out of the office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon saying that there's no work, you've done work last night, go home and have fun. The people are really friendly. They expect to be treated with respect like anywhere else, but they're also really fun loving. So you can have a good chat with them about pretty much everything under the sun, and you'll have fun. They're much more relaxed, I think, than Indian internships, because the people are just a bit more relaxed as well. So that's what you should expect.
All right. Can you name very quickly 5 law firms that Indian students can look at to get an internship abroad?
If you're looking to get an internship for a job offer, I think your best chances are with 𝗬𝗿𝗍𝗃, Herbert Smith, Clifford Chance, Allen & Overy, Herbert Smith Freehills. These are definitely your top 5 best, because you've had a record of taking in of quite a few Indian students. They know to be friendly like that. So I would go with them for sure.
All right. And in 2 lines, if you were to tell us that, what are these law firms looking for in their prospective employees?
Honestly, there's no one thing. Like I said, you obviously have to have an inclination towards commercial law, or at least project an inclination towards commercial law if you want to get an internship, because that's what they're looking at. But they also don't want students who are very set in one particular area of law. That is something that I've learned, because when in your training contract, the way it works is that you do 4 different departments of law distinct to each other. So you'll do litigation and arbitration, you'll do white collar crimes, you'll also do like mergers and acquisitions and debt resolution. So they want someone who's willing to work in every field of law. So be open in your, so while in your application, you should say that my specific interest is in this area of law. Make sure you mention that I'm open to exploring all areas of law and learning about them, and just show them that you've tried to work towards your goal in terms of explaining what you've done. So I think that's extremely important.
All right, Nisha, that's 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was very enlightening session for me, and I'm sure for our viewers too. We'll try to have you back because the questions are never ending. I'm still getting a lot of them, and I unfortunately can't answer all of them. But thank you so much for joining us, taking out your time at this hour. Back there at Manchester, and we hope to have you again on our show soon. For all of you others, tomorrow we'll be joined by Ms. Nilima Panda, who is a professor at KIIT University. She will be talking about what professors generally think of students, how to be the good books of the professors, and how to pursue teaching as a profession after pursuing her LLM. She's an LLM graduate from National Law School, Bangalore, as well as she has been a teacher for the past 3 years now. So do tune in tomorrow, 8 to 9, only on 𝗏𝗍. I'm Aditya, only on an hour with 𝗏𝗍. See you tomorrow. Till then, goodbye. Take care. And our 𝗏𝗍. Don't forget to press like, share, and subscribe. And do not forget to press the bell icon. See you tomorrow. Our 𝗏𝗍.